Good morning to everyone. Welcome to weekly Saturday knowledge sharing webinar organized by Mehta and Mehta. Thanks a lot for your participation. Today's topic is an insight into independent directors, and our panelist is Mr. Manikanthan. Welcome, Mr. Manikantha. Thanks a lot. To introduce, Mr. Manikantha is a qualified company secretary having over 2 decades of experience. He has rich experience in various fields such as corporate governance, corporate secretarial, treasury, finance, compliance management, merger and acquisitions, etc. He is currently working as a company secretary of Infosys Limited and oversees the secretarial function of the entire group. He is an active member of FICCI Corporate Law Committee, member of CII Regulatory Affairs Committee, member of Secretarial Standard Board of ICSI, member of Industry Standards Forum, constituted under SEBI and various other forums. He is a regular speaker at ICSI and other professional circles. Welcome, Mr. Manikantha.
Thank you, Deepthi. Thank you for having me here. It's a privilege and honor to be part of this strong panel. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Our today's presenter is Ms. Khadija Indorwala. Khadija is an associate member of ICSI and is also Commerce and Law graduate. She is having experience of around 5 years in corporate secretary and legal field. She specializes in due diligence, secretarial audit of listed and unlisted public company and compliance of various laws of the Companies Act and other allied laws. We have heavy board. Today we have our own member, Mr. Pala, who is always there, and Mr. Sudhakar, everyone knows. I don't introduce, but I'll proudly introduce our new chief advisor of Mehta and Mehta, Mr. Anil Khatri. Welcome, Mr. Anil Khatri.
Thank you.
An accomplished company secretary with over 38 plus years of experience across the IT services and manufacturing industries. Currently serving as a chief advisor as Mehta. He has previously held the position of vice president and company secretary at Tech Mahindra Limited for 14 glorious years. He has track record of building strong stakeholder relationship, liaising effectively with various government agencies. Welcome, Mr. Khatri, and we would like to have your comments and expert advisory and comments in today's topic also. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your kind words.
Thanks, everyone.
Over to Manikanthan, please.
Today's topic, independent director. नाम ही काफी है.
Yeah.
Because anything happen, people will look, who is independent director? They have checked it or not. So boss, after CS, the first person to be after the compliance officer, KMP, this is the first person parallel who will be first sought, who is the independent director. So every independent director now is so cautious and precautionary, and that they should be. Because what is the onus placed by regulatory, what is the expectation from the regulatory and stakeholder is tremendous, and that's why it is necessary. And that's why we as a professional should be well versed with all the relevant provisions of independent directors so that we acquaint them with their duties, responsibility, rights, and we provide them full support in discharging their duties and try to provide the best corporate governance and get their best advice and expert knowledge from independent director. With this short comment, I'll request Mr. Manikantha to say a few words, then Mr. Sudhakar and Mr. Anil Khatri and Mr. Bala. I'll say that we'll start at 11:15, so that way we have to start. Thank you. Over to Mr. Manikantha.
Thank you, Deepthi. Thank you. As I was saying, it's a privilege and honor to be part of this extremely privileged and extremely high experienced panel. Thanks a lot for having me here. Before I start, just a standard disclaimer: the views expressed during this session is my personal, and it is not my employer. and this purely for an academical enrichment perspective. So Deepthi, I just want to borrow the context. I thought it is important to give the context, like what you were mentioning. I thought I'll just add few points. Why is an independent director, right? This has been uh, about the concept is about maybe around 20-25 years in India, maybe a little more than that. But still, it is still evolving even as of today. The very fact that we have about 200 members joining this session shows the importance of this topic. Uh, this is a topic uh, which is uh, which is very close to all our professionals, and it is the cornerstone for the corporate governance in India. Just to give you the context, the whole concept of this independent directors in India started way back in 1988. Uh, when the UK and US, they were grappling with the issues of all the other economic downturn, etc. There was also a concept of this Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and at the same time, there was a Cadbury committee as well, right? So there was a mention of about these independent directors in a way of how it was functioning in those countries. So in India as well, the first concept of these independent directors, at least the mention of independent director as a word or as a concept, was proposed by CII. CII actually came out with a paper mentioning the requirement or probably why we should not have a institution called independent directors. And that's how they came out with a paper, and it actually proposed various other factors learning from other jurisdictions. So that's where it started. And after that, the first committee which actually took up is the Kumaramangalam Birla Committee in the year 2000. In the year 2000, when Kumaramangalam Birla Committee actually
2002.
proposed and discussed this heavily of the concept of independent directors, and they made a proposal to include as part of the listing agreement. Before this LODR, there was a concept of listing agreement where the listed companies asked to sign an agreement with the stock exchanges if their stocks wants to be listed, right? So they made as a clause 49, which was a very powerful clause as part of a corporate governance. That was a living and breathing clause in the entire listing agreement. That became a very important topic, and the concept of independent director got introduced there. And going forward in 2002, there was a special committee constituted by the government of India under the chairmanship of Naresh Chandra Committee. Now, Naresh Chandra Committee also had discussed the concept of independent director. They thought that the definition was not in line with what they had seen globally, and the committee proposed an amendment to the definition of independent director itself. And then fast forward, and again, in the same year, 2002, there was another committee which was chaired by Narayan Murthy, also proposed the amendments to the definition of the independent director. Now, all that actually has led to the precise definition of who can be an independent director. Basically, it said that it has to be a person who is entirely independent of the management or the promoter or the promoter group itself, right? So that's basically the premise. And of course, there is a nuances which we can see through the presentation of how the Companies Act or the listing regulations gives the definition in its current form. Now, then after the 2002, then came the 2013 Companies Act, right? The 2013 Companies Act is the pivotal point, I would say, to take the whole concept of independent directors into a new level, because it not only limited to the listed companies, it actually mandated to certain other unlisted companies and public companies which had certain thresholds, right? Based on the moment there is a increase of or breach of those thresholds, either way of turnover or share capital or borrowings, whatever. Now you have to have mandatorily the independent directors on your board. And why is something which we will unveil as we go forward. But this is the great point at 2013 when it got included as part of the definition in the Companies Act itself. And after that, it was variously discussed in 2017 in Uday Krota committee as well as part of this corporate governance committee when they had formed. They had also given a lot of recommendations to strengthen the institution of independent directors. And from then on, I think I think we have seen the whole concept of independent directors. Uh, the 2 years terms have also completed after the enactment of 2013 Act, right? Where the independent directors can be part of the board for a tenure of 5 years, up to a tenure of 5 years for 2 times, which means most of the companies had actually surpassed those 10 years. And now you see a fresh faces, I would say, or maybe it is a churn of the independent directors. They would have gone from one company to another, or there is a new set of independent directors who are coming. So that's the context where we are in right now. And I just want to touch upon what are the issues and challenges which these independent directors are facing, both from an industry perspective and also from professionals' perspective, or maybe from an independent directors themselves perspective. Now, the first itself, the industry thinks that this is still a evolving subject, though it is about 25 years or what. The concept is still evolving in India. There is much to catch up, is the view from an industry. Now, why there is thinking is because of multiple factors. First of all, if you see the context of Indian corporates, they're all family owned. Basically, it's a promoter driven concept, promoter driven companies, most of them. Therefore, the very concept of independent director is somebody third party who is coming and sitting in your board, who is taking the decisions on your company's behalf, is a little bit of a tough situation to accept the third party coming and sitting in your boardroom. So that is the first resistance. I think we have come a long way from 1998 to till now. It's a long way. That concept is now very well accepted, that there is a requirement of an independent thinking for the betterment of any organization. I think that's the first challenge which we are working through. The second is availability. Now there is no enough talent pool in the entire corporate India. Now even if a large corporate wants to appoint somebody who can add value to their corporates, they don't get the independent director. There is not enough pool. So that's the second thing which the entire corporate is grappling with. The third is about when you get the independent directors, they probably don't understand the operations of the company, right? You are a third person, maybe you are a very good lawyer or a CS professional or a chartered accountant, you are good at your subject. But when you are put into a company on the board, you will not know the operations of how does it work. So therefore, you may come up with only your point of academical knowledge, which may not fly operationally. So therefore, the duality or the bringing the knowledge of your own domain to the practicality is a journey, and it is a little bit difficult. And I think that's another problem which we are trying to tackle with it. And the other point is the ability to look beyond is not there in many professionals or many independent directors, even if you want to do it. So I think one of the ability of a director or an independent director is to look beyond of what has been presented, right? So you can have a presentation which is fascinating, but what is underlying you don't know, right? So therefore you have to go beyond and look beyond what has been presented is an ability which as a quality is not available enough in the market. And added to this are the liabilities. There are enough and more liabilities. I think Khadija will explain what are those liabilities. Now, if anybody wants to pick up this independent director as a profession, first, the moment they look at the liability side, they will probably not be willing to take up the independent directors as a profession. I'll just give you some of the numbers. If it's approximately about 500 independent directors who are actually resigning every year from 2022 to 23 till now. Is actually the numbers are increasing. It was 509 in 2022-23, moved to 513 last year, and then it is 549 this 24-25. So you see an increasing trend. This is all because there is so much of liabilities which are casted on the independent directors. I think even before we started, if you mentioned about the liabilities of how many are there in independent directors. So it's increasingly an onerous proposition. So therefore, there is a need to strengthen the independent directors institution itself. Now, the last one, what I was thinking is a balancing of interest, right? Whether it for a company to prosper, it has to have a constructive mechanism of decision making. Therefore, when you are having a constructive mode of decision making, it has to balance everybody's interests and bring best to the company's interest. So I think that is one of the things where we cannot, where the quality, again, it goes back to the quality of independent directors, right? So that is also one of the important things which I thought should be mindful of. Now, I was just thinking from a professional's point of view. Now, from professional's point of view, you see, there are so many things. There's so much of literature, right from Companies Act, from listing regulations. There are notifications. There are circulars. There is guidance note. There is informal guidance. There's so many things. Now, how do you grapple with all this? It's extremely difficult. Now, I was just reflecting on what should be done if somebody asks in this seminar, how do we, what is the source, or how can we make life simple for the professionals? Now, I was just thinking, I thought this guidance note which has come out, right, from the Secretary Standards Board of ICSI is a very good document, I would say. I would actually encourage all the professionals, even the independent directors, if they get a chance to should go through this, because it actually gives you a glimpse of the requirements of the Companies Act. It gives the requirement of listing regulations. It actually thinks some of the probable questions and answers, and it also gives you the flavor of other jurisdictions, and it gives you the flavor of what can be the liabilities, how one individual can protect themselves. And lastly, it also gives you the view of proxy advisory firms. Now, what does the proxy advisory firms think about the whole independent directors is also something which the guidance note speaks about. So I would strongly encourage to go through this. So I thought I will share these thoughts before I hand over to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Just, I think, Sudha, and
Let us start the presentation.
yeah, we'll start the presentation. Yeah, Khadija, we'll start.
Okay.
And you share all your comments during the webinar. And participants, you can put the questions in the chat box. And I don't think today we are going to get time to allow to speakers, but to participants. But still, if you get time, surely will. Okay? Yeah, please.
Good morning to the esteemed panelists and all the participants. A very important and crucial topic for the company secretary, but as well as for the independent director who are serving on the board and who are willing to join as an independent director. As independent director is also called as a watchdog for corporate governance, as they play a crucial role in protection of shareholders in the biased decision. Now, so the first slide explains about the definition of independent director with respect to Companies Act and LODR. The definition is same in some way, but there are certain points which I have marked in red, which are addition in the SEBI LODR. That is, independent director with respect to Companies Act means a director other than a managing director, full-time director, or nominee director. But in case of LODR, it means a non-executive director other than the nominee director of the listed entity. There is certain addition with respect to not a promoter of the company or its company that is holding subsidiary, associate, or member of promoter group of the listed entity. No pecuniary relationship of the listed entity apart from receiving director remuneration with its company holding subsidiary or associate or promoter or directors. Now, in the case of Companies Act, during the immediately preceding 2 years is mentioned, However, in the case of SEBI LODR, it is 3 years and current financial year. None of whose relatives is holding any security, is indebted to any guarantee or promoter or director in excess of such 3 immediately preceding financial year or current financial year, or has any guarantee or security, or in relation to all this point, should not exceed 2% of the gross turnover or total income of 50 lakh rupees. So again, here there is a difference as per Companies Act and LODR that 3 years is mentioned, and in Companies Act 2 years is mentioned. Neither himself, herself, or whose relative addition hold or has held position of KMP or employee of the company or any company belonging to the promoter group of the listed entity, or is an employee or partner or proprietor, firm of auditors, CS in practice, any legal or consultancy firm, or hold with its relative 2% or more of voting power, CEO or director of NGO that receive 25% or more of receipt from holding subsidiary or associate, or a promoter or director of the company holds 2% of more of the voting power. Now, one more addition over here, very important, is a material supplier, service provider or customer, or lessor or lessee of the listed entity who is not less than 20 years, 21 years of age. So, panelist, I will like you to put a light on this material supplier case if there is any.
Yeah, so can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Go ahead, please.
No, I thought I would like to give one example where in one of the automotive company there was an advisor, there was a legal counsel who was advising the company, and his candidature came for the appointment as an independent director. Though technically that firm was not a material supplier. It was not crossing those thresholds which was mentioned in the entire definitions of the RPT. It went for the board, thought that they are independent. The candidate also thought that he was independent and went and applied for the independent directorship. The board recommended it, but when it came to the shareholders, the explanatory statement did not contain many of those details. And the proxy advisory firms took a different view because they didn't had much of the information in place, and the resolution was actually defeated. This is a famous celebrated legal counsel with a celebrated company, but that happened. But however, in the same group, the other company, actually that is also a listed company, that company gave complete details, full transparency, providing what was the nature of relationship, how much was the fees which was paid, and also the disclosure saying that it was not crossing the thresholds. In that case, actually the resolution was passed, and this is something which I would say the professionals has to look into the aspects of how much detail, how much detail should one provide in an explanatory statement for any independent director to get their resolution passed. Yeah, I'll stop here. If there are any questions on this, probably I'll take this.
Yeah, just to add further, what Mani has said is that most of the times what happens is in the seminars and conferences, we talk so many things about the complaints as part of the independent directors, about his appointment, resolutions, filing of forms, intimating to stock exchanges, etc. But this qualification is the fundamental thing which the company secretaries and the compliance officer have to go through very, very minutely and thoroughly. It's a huge, long drawn this thing, 149.6. If you see that, if you prepare a matrix, so almost about 52 parts are there which you need to verify that. At the same point of time, the appointment of an independent director is to be recommended by the Nomination and Remuneration Committee. How the NRC is going to take the cognizance of the incumbent who is going to be appointed as an independent director? If you see the definition, the first and foremost thing is that the person who has to have the integrity, then the requisite experience and qualifications. How you will determine the integrity? So NRC commit, because most of the time the independent director's appointment is proposed by the management and verified by the NRC before recommending it to the board. So the NRC to a large extent depends upon the management, and management depends upon the in particular compliance officer and the company secretary. So the company secretary has to have a kind of a background check of the incumbent. Most of the time, in fact, recently one or two, three instances have come to my knowledge where the company secretary was simply depending upon the certificates given by the independent director. That company secretary has to check the veracity of the independent director's affirmations also. He cannot take it on the face value. Sometimes it may so happen the independent directors are giving affirmations based upon his knowledge, which he might not be knowing certain things, he might be ignorant about that. So it is the responsibility of the company secretary and the compliance officer to sit with that incumbent, to ask him the questions, and whatever he is saying. Say, for example, recently I came to know that an independent director, the incumbent rather, he said that I don't need to take the proficiency test because I am exempted from that. He has given an affirmation that he is exempted. And the company secretary took it on the face value of that. And the proxy advisory firm has invented about that this gentleman is not exempted. And they wrote to the company about this thing, and the company asked if the company that whoever is the director going to be appointed. And he said that, look, I thought I had this thing and all. He started fumbling. It was such an embarrassment to the company as well as to the incumbent and to, of course, the compliance officer. So sometimes it may so happen in the clutter of the details, we forget the fundamentals. So my advice to all the company secretaries is the time of appointment itself, you should be vigilant and you should be diligent, and you should not be negligent. Normally, I say this to the independent directors. If you want to save from your liability, you should be diligent, vigilant, and not to be negligent. But after these one or two incidents which came to my knowledge, now I thought that even the company secretary and the compliance officers are also to be diligent and vigilant about the incumbents. Yeah.
So just to add 2 points here. One is that when we appoint independent directors, the proxy firm and the FIs are also looking at in how many companies he or she is an independent director, and whether he or she will be able to devote sufficient time. They also see the number of committees the person is there, then also how many meetings they attend, etc. So it becomes a duty of our company secretary to, highlight this to the management before it is put up for, appointment to the NRC, etc. That's my submission.
And one point to be added that many times that independent director requires certain prior permission to serve the board of other company. At that juncture, looking at the stature and the position of person, a CS should not be reluctant to ask that permission first. And we should not proceed for the appointment them as independent director, otherwise it will create an issue. Thank you.
Yeah, no, just to add to the Sudhakar's and Anil's point, I think the practical way of to deal with this kind of, because there are so many conditionalities which, as Kadeja was explaining, the definitions itself is so exhaustive, and most of them has to be done or complied even before the appointment, like what Sudhakar was mentioning. So therefore, the practically probably a checklist can be developed or a metrics can be developed to completing or covering all those 52, 53 points or maybe more than that, and meticulously go through each one of them. It can give you as a ready reckoner, and it can actually give you as a first-hand due diligence report. In many of the good big corporates, what they also take a independent due diligence reports, which gets done by some of these HR firms, just to independently do a background verification check of these independent direct or the potential candidates, so that you don't get into an embarrassing situation once the appointment is completed. So probably those are two things which you can take a note of.
But money, that is a bit sensitive thing, okay, appoint somebody for the background check. But the only thing is the company secretary himself can do a lot many things on the Google itself. as far as the background check is concerned. But of course, no doubt about it, the very reputed companies, they have to depend upon some kind of a background check to the third party also.
Yeah. No, so there are multiple sectoral regulators also. Like for instance, in the bank, you would heavily require a due diligence report completed it ahead of time. And also RBI themselves, you have to have a approval by them even before you appoint. Like that, in many other sectoral regulators, they actually request for this due diligence report. And in many other jurisdictions, they say that the director should not be penalized or should not be criminally convicted, etc. So that the due diligence report can actually serve in the best interest of both the candidate and the company.
Oh, thanks. Friends, there is a question. It's to keep awake and involved every participants. You can participate, and there is a poll is going on the questions. Yeah, Khadija, you can go ahead.
Yes. So there was a request for informal guidance by way of a letter. In the case of Infobeans Technologies Limited, the request letters were issued at 25th of February 2025. It was with respect to the clarification of material pecuniary relationship of Regulation 16(1)(b). So as per Companies Act, there is no pecuniary relationship and the turnover percentage is described in the Companies Act. However, in the case of SEBI LODR, there is no percentage description. So this was the letter wherein the final answer was that with respect to a listed company, LODR is also required to be definition need to be complied and other applicable laws including 149(6) definition is also need to be complied. Sudhakar sir, any inputs on this?
And go ahead, and okay, because you have to quickly go through the slides also.
And Khadija, they will give the comments when they want
We
it.
we will give you you don't need to ask us wherever we have to pitch in, we will do that.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
independent director plays a major role in board meeting. So independent director offers valuable strategic advice and industry insight during the board decisions. They scrutinize the performance of management in achieving goals. They act as a link between the stakeholder and the company, ensuring their concerns are addressed. They play a vital role in determining executive compensation and recommendation of appointment and removal of KMPs. So applicability with respect to the appointment of independent director. So listed public company must have at least 1/3 of the board as independent director. Any fraction need to be rounded off as 1. With respect to unlisted public companies, as per the rule of 4 of companies appointment and qualification of director, there are certain classes of company which must have at least 2 independent director. That is a public company having a paid up share capital of 10 crore or more, a public company with a turnover of 100 crore or more, a public company with aggregate outstanding loan debenture deposit exceeding 50 crore. Now, there is an exemption with respect to joint venture company, wholly owned subsidiary company, and dormant company. Even if they are meeting the limit criteria, they are not required to have an independent director. If a public unlisted company is required to appoint a higher number of ID due to the composition of its audit committee, such higher number shall be the independent director. So here is an example which I have described, that XYZ is an unlisted public company having 6 directors in its audit committee. Then 4 out of 6 must be ID. Although the company is required to have only 2 directors as ID, but in case of XYZ, the limit of 2 will be increased to 4 due to constitution of audit committee. Compliances with respect to the data bank. The proposed ID is required to register himself or herself in India Independent Director Data Bank maintained by IICA. Apply for an online test in the data bank for a period of 1 year, 5 year, or his lifetime. Now, there are certain exemption of tests given to a director who has served as director or KMP for last 10 years. That is a listed company, an unlisted public company with a paid up share capital, a body corporate, body corporate incorporated, having a paid up share capital of $2 million, or statutory corporation. Apart from them, there are certain other exemptions given to a CA, CS. So these are other exemptions. Now, number of independent director as per LODR. So if your chairman of the board is non-executive director, then 1/3 of the board shall comprise of independent director. If the chairman is executive director, half of the board needs to be comprised of independent director. If non-executive chairman related to the promoter or manager, then half of the board needs to be independent director. Company have outstanding SR equity shares, then half of the board needs to be independent director. Now, as per the committee, the number of independent directors, I have described in two parts, as per Companies Act and as per LODR. So in case of Companies Act, in case of audit committee, majority needs to be independent director. In case of LODR, 2/3 of the members of the audit committee shall comprise of independent director. In case of NRC, half of the members needs to be independent director and chairman shall be independent director as per Companies Act. As per LODR, 2/3 of the members shall be independent director and chairman needs to be independent director. In case of stakeholder relationship committee, at least one independent director. In case of risk management committee, at least one independent director, and SR equity shares in case of 2/3 independent director.
Just to add here, Khatija, that most of the listed companies would have, even if the requirement is not there for chairman to be an independent director, most of the listed companies would have chairman as independent director. That is one.
Yes.
Now, the stakeholders relationship committee had great prominence in the physical era of shares. But post demat, there is not much for the committee to do. But here, we professionals and the company secretaries, can bring to light the work which is being done by the secretarial team by way of helping in IPF matters. Similarly, in stakeholders committee, we can include, ESG related matter or vendor complaints related matter or other stakeholders. And that way, value add can be done by stakeholders committee. Similarly, risk management committee, unfortunately, in LODR, the prominence is not given so much. But we have seen in the pandemic era that how it was important, how we were working from home and customers' data protection, etc. So, in my view, that risk management committee is equally important, and so is the CSR committee. That was a limited point.
Yeah, just to add on the stakeholders relationship committee, the increasing trend is now, as Anil was mentioning, the physical shareholders era has almost gone. So therefore, now the focus has completely shifted on the investor relations. Now, who is in your cap table, and what is the quality of that cap table? Are we serving them as an investor, the company, whether they are serving to the needs of the investors or not? The conversations have completely shifted than only to deal with the physical shares in the earlier era. Now it's more qualitative, and the companies are trying to see how can we meet the needs of the investors. I think the very quality has improved is the one point which I wanted to leave it. And the risk management committee is actually a very significant committee. I think this is not been understood properly in many of the companies. The risk management is something, if you don't focus on, the very existential of any company will come into a question. So therefore, some of the remote probabilities of what can turn into a risk, of what it can actually bring down your company, has to be addressed at an appropriate stage. Probably there should be a foresight, or you have to have a mechanism to bubble up what are those top risks, and then have a mechanism to mitigate it. I think that this is a very important committee, I would say, apart from the audit committee and the NRC.
Yeah, I do agree with Mani as far as the RMC is concerned. It is just like a disaster management committee. Disaster management committee, till the time the disaster doesn't take place, it has no importance. The moment it takes place, it is the most prominent committee. Same is the case with risk management committee also. every company has several risks. All those risks need to be identified. And then, see, for example, reputation risk. Whenever we talk about risk, we talk about all the risks other than the reputation risk. According to me, that is the most important risk, because the reputation risk got affected. Your share price is going to fall like a pack of cards. So every risk is to be identified. And as Mani has rightly mentioned, the mitigation measures are to be in place. The moment a crisis occurred, that time you should not scratch your head. You should just trigger that remedial measures. Within no time, the solution to be found. So RMC is a very important committee, as you rightly said, Mani.
Yeah, and I think Alil Bhai rightly pointed out it is not shareholders or investor relationship committee. The word is stakeholder.
Exactly.
And we say stakeholder was entire society is a stakeholder in our organization. So whosoever we are
No, no,
dealing.
but Deepti, as far as stakeholder relationship committee, though they have given that word terminology of
Yeah,
stakeholders, but if you see the profile of that is under
yeah,
the regulations, and so according to me, one should not expand that promise this thing, because it is a legal committee. The moment you put your vendors relation issues, all those issues and all, we may mess up that. So if we want that, we can take it in a separate nomenclature, but we should not combine that with the stakeholder relationship committee, because this is a statutory committee and a regulatory committee. One should not play with that. That's what my personal view is.
I completely endorse your view because the definition, if you see, the stakeholder is nothing but the security holder, right? So therefore, any issues which the security holders has is the committee's remit, in my view. But if you want to expand the scope from shareholder to stakeholder, probably you can have an equivalent of ESG committee. Probably ESG committee is also
yeah.
one
Yeah.
area where it is actually moving from the shareholder to the stakeholder, and therefore you're looking from the all the stakeholders' point of view.
Thank you. Yeah, Khadija.
So now, as per Companies Act, there is one more addition of committee, that is CSR. So in CSR, we needs to have at least the director shall be an independent director. Then one independent director on the board of the listed entity shall be a director on the board of unlisted material subsidiary. Material subsidiary is a subsidiary whose turnover or net worth exceed 20% of consolidated turnover or net worth. Now, top 10,000 listed entities must have at least one independent woman director. As per SEBI LODR, the quorum for meeting a board of director of top 2000 listed entity shall be one third of its total strength or three director, whichever is higher, including at least one independent director. And as per Companies Act, total one third of the strength or two director, whichever is higher, and director participating through VC needs to be included in quorum. Now we will go with appointment procedure of independent director. First is applicability of section 149, as I discussed earlier in my slide of 149.6. We need to check that threshold. Obtaining then director's identification number. A person shall have a valid DIN before his appointment. It needs to be a valid DIN, not proposed after the DIN he will be appointed. So this need to be taken care of here. If the selected person is not having DIN, then we need to apply for the DIN by filing the form and board resolution for the same. Registration with the data bank requires an independent director to register in the data bank and clear that test.
Yeah, just a point on the previous slide with respect to obtaining the DIN. Earlier, there was a practice that even without the DIN, you could have made an appointment, and then subsequently DIN could have been obtained. But now, after the changes in the regulations, you have to one has to mandatorily have a DIN number even before you proceed. There are some nuances in this because if you want to apply for a DIN, you have to pass a resolution saying that the proposed candidate is actually willing to join the company. There is some confidentiality matters which probably sometimes even before you make an appointment, this information will go out from the company to the MC and to others. So this is something which I thought has to be addressed, because even without the board is considered as approved, how can one make a proposed resolution for with the MCA, you cannot file it, which is available with the public domain. So probably this is something which we have to delve upon more with the regulators.
So now obtain declaration from the proposed independent director, obtain from DI2 that is concerned to act as a director, obtain declaration of independence at the first meeting of the board in which he is participate as a director, at every first meeting of the board in every financial year, or wherever there is any change in the situation or affect any status of an independent director. Apart from DI2 and independence, DI rate and notice of interest in form MBP1 is also required to be disclosed by the independent director. Now, recommendation of NRC, very important. NRC shall formulate a criteria for determining the qualification and independence of the director. As per the NRC shall evaluate the balance of skill, knowledge, the experience of the director. All these items are taken care by the NRC committee, which will be discussed in the NRC meeting. Now, appointment of independent director by the board. Board will also discuss about the appropriate balance of skill of independent director, the experience, the knowledge, and convey a board meeting by issuing the notice, agenda, and draft resolution. Now, as per section 152, a board cannot appoint a independent director as director. It needs to be appointed as an additional director, and then he will go for a regularization or change in designation to an independent director. So this needs to be taken care while appointing an independent director. Now, approval by shareholders. Appointment of independent director requires the approval of shareholders in the AGM or AOGM or postal ballot. Now, with respect to explanatory statement, the explanatory statement must specify the justification of choosing the appointee as an independent director, the opinion of the board with respect to the criteria which he meets for the independence. The profile of independent director need to be attached in the explanatory statement. Also, the disclosure of the same needs to be uploaded on the website and also to be filed with the stock exchange, that is BSE or NSE. In case of reappointment, performance evaluation report is required. As per LODR, if the appointee independent director has attained the age of 75 years, then a special resolution needs to be required to be done for appointment or continuation. Approval of shareholder for appointment is taken at next general meeting or within 3 months of appointment, whichever is earlier.
This is an important point. The last one about that 75 years is an important point. This is the latest amendment which has come. So if an individual is crossing the threshold of 75 years, then a special resolution is necessary. Otherwise, they will become disqualified. The resolution will become disqualified. So this is an important point to note out, watch out for.
Now, issue of letter of appointment and ROC filing. So, as per Schedule 4, there are certain points which are described that in letter of appointment, what all points needs to be included. That is the outline of director terms, responsibility, remuneration, their duties, their functions, everything needs to be, their perquisite, everything needs to be mentioned. In respect of filing with MCA, Form DI-12 is respect to be filed within 30 days of passing of board resolution, as well as Form MGT 14 is also required to be filed with respect to the special resolution. For listed company, intimation is also required to be provided to the stock exchange within 24 hours of the appointment. Now, entries in respect to the appointment of independent director in the register of director and publication of website. The terms of appointment needs to be uploaded on the website of the company, and in register in form MBP4, the details of the director needs to be mentioned. Now, directors and officers insurance, which is specified in LODR as per regulation 2510, that the top 1,000 listed entity by market capitalization shall undertake DNO insurance for all the independent director. A high value debt listed entity shall also undertake DNO insurance. which require them to protect from legal liabilities and claims.
Just to
Now,
add here,
Question on
Kanika,
this.
this
Sorry.
DNO
hmm,
has become very important policy from a independent director's point of view, from the corporate's point of view, because whenever there are legal suits overseas, the cost of those suits are in millions. So from an ID point and from the company's point, it is very important. We all learned this in the last 10 years. There are so many litigations which are happening across the globe. So DNO policy is very important. I thought I'd draw the attention to that.
So, Mr. Mani, there is a question in that regard in chat box. Is there an insurance mechanism for independent directors which can reduce the liabilities for decision taken in good faith?
Yeah, no, I think Anil responded to it already.
Hmm.
So the D&O insurance is something which now there is also a requirement from the listing regulations saying that you need to have the D&O policy. So this can serve, and this, in fact, the growing trend is nobody will join without knowing the terms of the D&O insurance. In fact, they will ask you what is the term, how much is the coverage, what are the matters which gets covered, all that, right? And they ensure that their name is there. Most of the times it is position, right? So even then, some of them insist to ensure that name or at least the designation is available on the D&O insurance.
And it depends on insurance policy. You have to read the terms and then work it out.
Yeah, no, I think
To
it's
be very careful. Yeah, sorry.
yeah. So I think generally it covers all the liabilities if an individual has taken uh, precaution while providing his decisions. If he has not done, if he has not completed, or if he has not discharged his obligations as required under the regulations, those things are not covered. And if it is in the nature of criminal, of course, it is not covered. So I think those are the two principles which one has to look into it.
Thanks.
So
Yeah.
just to add to
Also
the
in
D&O
addition, Mani,
policy, though it is mandated for the top 1,000 listed entities, I always advise that the company secretaries have to take initiative to have a D&O policy, even if it is not falling under the top 1,000 listed entities.
absolutely.
Because it is not only taking care of the independent directors, it is taking care of the full board as well as of the KMPs also. Because tomorrow, as a company secretary, several company secretaries have come under a cloud without they involved directly. Sometimes it so happens they have resigned the company, but still it is to happen. That's why, in fact, that several times I advised this. The independent directors in particular and directors in general, they have to also insist at the time of appointment that they have to have a D&O policy. And in addition to that, even after their retirement or after the 2 terms or their resignation, but sometimes they have to have the coverage because see, what happens is most of the times the legal issues arises after some time, not immediately. And by the time the legal issues arises, your term is completed, and they said, sorry, your D&O policy is not there. Now you have to fight out your own battle. It's very difficult for the independent directors. So it is better to have that clause also that post their retirement, up to 5 years or a period of something like that, the D&O policy coverage should be there. As far as the insurance company is concerned, they won't have any problem. Only thing is the premium is to be paid. And it is a very minuscule premium as far as the company is concerned, by that. If you see the size of the operations and the amount of premium, what you have to pay is nothing. Only thing is somebody has to advise the management in a right perspective, and that is the company secretary who has to take the initiative.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
to
so
add,
Mehta, just to
Sudhakar,
add,
sorry, Mani, you were saying something.
go ahead, please, Anil.
No, just to add, this DNO policy invariably has 3 to 5 years cover post moving out of the independent director or the KMP. But of course, as you rightly point out, it should be ensured by the concern of the company, KMPs and whoever it is handling.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mani, go ahead.
No. So I was just trying to add to the same point that, in fact, the acts which has happened during that tenure, whoever is that person at that point of time, that's why it is not named policy. It is actually a generic policy where all the directors and officers are covered, which means that at that point of time, whoever is the person, whether it is X or Y or Z, they get automatically covered. So it is irrespective of whether you are associated with the company or not associated with the company. For the acts completed during that year, you are covered. So probably this clause, whether it is available or not in the insurance, is something which should be checked. I think that
Many
may be
years.
better, that may be a better way of handling it, because you never know. This can come up 5 years later, 7 years
Yeah.
later, 8 years later.
It is available money.
Money, as you rightly say, it is a correct thing because we also had an insurance policy. What it says, there is a clause is there, whatever the occurrence that happened during that particular period,
Exactly.
irrespective of any year the action comes, that will get covered, the people who was there. That clause is there in the insurance company, it is automatically covered. That is one. Number two is, as you rightly said, insurance will cover everything. The law itself says, if we go with the section 166, it says so, describing the duties of the director, what they are supposed to do, what they are not supposed to do. Both the things are mentioned actually, do's and don'ts. If they acted within that, then in which case automatically insurance actually get covered. As you rightly pointed out, any criminal thing, any negligence, those will not get
Yeah.
covered. That has to go from their out of own pocket. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Khadija. Go ahead.
So entitlement of ID is very important. Remuneration by way of fee as per section 197 with the provision of schedule 5. Schedule 5 itself is a very big topic. So remuneration of ID needs to be paid accordingly. Reimbursement of expenses for participation in the board and other meeting and profit related commission as may be approved by the members.
So
Now,
on this remuneration, one point that companies which have ESOPs granted earlier period to independent director, that is prior to 2013, and to the non-executive directors as well. So when they exercise their option, the perquisite value also gets added, and if that is more than 50% of the remuneration, then special approval needs to be taken. I thought I'll draw attention to that as well. Money you can add.
No, I think you're right. But given that we are already 12 years after the 2013 Act, where the 2013 Act actually prohibits issuing the ESOPs, I think now that is a mooted point, more or less.
Yeah.
so there was an adjudication order passed by the ROC of Chandigarh with respect to the provision of section 149(4) in the case of BCL Homes Limited, where the ROC have penalized the company and director for non-appointment of independent director and constitution of the board committee as mentioned in the Companies Act. So this case relates to the unlisted public company who have not complied with the threshold limit of independent director and they have not appointed the independent director, as well as the board committee was not constituted as per the section of 177 and 178 of the Companies Act.
In fact, nowadays ROCs are very, vigilantly looking into all these matters. Wherever the non-appointment, even if you have the inadequacy of the director that is subject to limit of 2 directors, 3 directors, and all those cases, plus also the entry is not there in the director's data bank. All those cases which are actually coming out very light here, and they are scrupulously looking into this matter. So that shows our professional responsibility to ensure, as our panelists said earlier, we have to take the extra caution in ensuring all those things to safeguard the interests of the liability of the company as well as the directors. And not only that, in many cases, the company secretary is also now penalized because, especially after that Madras fertilizer case, they highlighted the company secretary alone is responsible for the compliances and other thing and all. Nowadays, that is also happening. So we'll have to be very careful as professional. Yeah.
Yeah, Khadija.
Who will determine the quantum of sitting fees? So the board is having the power a sitting fees decide and which will not exceed 1 lakh per meeting of the board and committee thereon. However, the independent director and women director, the sitting fees shall not be less than the sitting fees payable to the board of other directors. Payment shall be at the discretion of the board.
Just to add here, some of the companies, they may not have sitting fees, and they may give commission up to 1%, of course, based on the profit. So those criterias of getting the commission are to be found by the NRC and the board, So I thought I'll just draw attention to that as well. And normally we take permission for a period of 5 years for paying up to 1% commission to the IDs or NEDs. Uh, although money can add here.
There was one question, I think, on the whether we can pay differently
Differential, yeah.
to different directors for the independent directors. I think you can pay. There is no bar in my view. But all that is like what Anil was mentioning. You should have a framework of what criteria will you use to pay. It can't be discretionary, right? So therefore, there should be some method to madness. Some framework should be thought through, and which has to be approved by the board and the if it crosses the threshold, then you have to get the shareholders approval as well. Once the only other point is, let's say if one non-executive director is receiving more than 50% of the remuneration, full total put together with all the non-executive total remuneration which is paid to the board, then you have to take a special resolution. I think there is one pointer in the slide, I believe. So that is very important. Mostly this point will be overlooked. So it's important to draw the attention and look at how much remuneration is paid to each director and whether it is crossing those thresholds or not.
It is to be
Yeah,
passed by special
similar,
resolution, and every year it is to be taken.
and
Yeah,
similar
it is
question. Sorry, Sudha.
No, as Anil was,
whenever it crosses, you have to take the resolution. Let's say if it crosses this year, you have to take the resolution. Next year, if it doesn't cross, you need not take.
Yeah, there was similar question as regards commission also, whether different commission to different.
Yeah, that's the point which I was trying to address.
yeah, that is what he is talking now.
Yeah, okay.
So in addition, as I mentioned earlier regarding ESOP, so we as professional has to keep a watch on that how much exercise a non-executive director or executive director is making. Otherwise, it may cross the threshold limit of 1%, 3%, or 5%. So we have to guide the management as well on that. So thought I'll just draw attention on that as well.
Yeah.
So now tenure and reappointment of independent director. So as per section.
Question or we finished, complete the presentation, Sudha? Sudha,
I think we will finish up the presentation. That will be better
okay.
because,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, Khadija, go ahead.
So as section 149(10), an independent director shall be appointed for a term up to 5 consecutive years, and disclosure of appointment needs to be mentioned in the board report. However, as per section 149(11), an independent director cannot hold for more than 2 consecutive years, that is 10 years. Now they are eligible for reappointment by a special resolution. Again, as mentioned in SEBI LODR Regulation 25(2), maximum tenure needs to be as per Companies Act. The appointment, reappointment, or removal of an ID of a listed entity shall be by a special resolution with the approval of the shareholders. Now, there is a term related to cooling off period. Cooling off period of 3 years before being eligible for reappointment. During this period, they cannot be associated with the company in any other capacity.
Yeah, I think this is an important point, especially on the first line where you're saying term of up to 5 consecutive years. I think there were many questions, at least in the past, to say that whether I can appoint an independent for a period of 2 years or 3 years. It is doable. The word used is up to. Whereas if you see the statutory auditors, secretarial auditors, it says the term has to be a specified term of 5 years. So that's the difference. So for the independent directors, you can go up to 5 years, which can be lesser. But important point is that term, whatever you decide, if it is 2 years or 3 years, that will be looked as one term. So therefore, you can have only 2 terms. So if it is 2 plus 3, it can be only one term. You cannot have multiple terms consecutively.
So when should be the reappointment to be done? So reappointment need to be done by passing a special resolution. Now, if reappointment shall be done before or on the last date of the end of the tenure of the independent director to ensure that the second consecutive term of ID is secured.
Yeah, there also I think it's important the reappointment has to be done ahead of time. That is, even before the current tenure gets completed, you have to appoint, and the appointment has to be approved by the shareholders. It is not by the board. The board can only recommend, but the reappointment is definitely has to be approved ahead of time before the expiry of the current term.
In fact, in this particular point, many people think actually, you can take it in the next shareholders meeting, etc. But virtually speaking, once the term expires, if you are taking the approval, they are not an independent director. It is actually not a reappointment. It is as good as a new appointment only. That is what it has happened. As you rightly said, this point has to be remembered. One has to work towards it. And before the expiry of the term, the reappointment should be in place. Sudhakar, you may add this on this.
See that section 149, if you say, if I'm not wrong, that is subsection 10. It says that the independent director is eligible for a second term of 5 years on passing a resolution by the shareholders by way of a special resolution. So, in case of first term, the board has the power to appoint him as an additional director, designated as an independent director, subject to the approval of the shareholders. Such power is not there with the board for appointment of a second term because the section itself very clearly says that the incumbent, that the person is eligible for a second term only on the approval of the shareholders by way of a special resolution. So board cannot do anything there. This is the reason why, as Mani was rightly mentioning, that you have to ensure that before the expiry of the first term, the approval for the second term should be in place. If it is not there for whatever the reasons it is, say for example, your AGM is taking place in the month of August and September, and the director's first term is completing somewhere in the month of April, and then April, suppose the first term expires, and then you are issuing a notice, that AGM notice somewhere in the month of say June, July. That point of time, you cannot put up that resolution for a second term of appointment. The board cannot recommend that even because he is not a director at all. And the moment the first term expires and second term appointment is not in place, then you cannot, in fact, there is a question also in the chat box, if I am not wrong, you cannot appoint him again because there should be a cooling period of 3 years is required there. Very comprehensively, we have discussed this point in the guidance note. Kindly go through that. In fact, at one forum, when I was talking about this, somebody asked me a question, some very eminent listed company. Let me not take the name, but they have done it. I said that doesn't mean the law is changed. Law is to be interpreted the way it is drafted. So somebody has taken a call or they might have done it ignorantly. That doesn't mean you also follow that path only. So my request and the advice to all the participants is please go through the guidance note wherein we have said this particular section 149 subsection 10 and 11. I still remember at the SSB the kind of discussions and deliberations what we had. Almost about 3/4 of the day on these two sections only we have done it, and very carefully we have examined that and put it into the guidance note.
Yeah, it can bring a lot of trouble to the company secretaries actually if you don't attend this, because you are actually fighting with the individual as well, right? Because the company wants the director to continue. The individual may also would like to continue, but because of your own deficiency of not looking into it, this can get into a very bad situation. So please be more vigilant on this one.
Yeah, Kali.
So now with respect to independent directors, Schedule 4 is very important. Now Schedule 4 describes the code for independent director. So the code for independent director shall include the duties of independent director, the objectivity, their responsibilities in a bona fide manner and in the interest of the company, the sufficient time and attention to his professional obligation, for informed decision balance making. Now, with respect to Part 5, resignation or removal of ID, so an independent director who resigns or is removed from the board shall be replaced by a new independent director within 3 months from the date of such resignation or removal, as the case may be. However, if there is, even without filling the vacancy, as the case may be, the requirement of replacement by a new independent director shall not apply. Now, separate meeting of independent director. At least one meeting in a financial year shall be held without the presence of non-independent director and members of the management, and all the independent directors shall strive to be present at the meeting. Now, in the meeting, they should review the performance of non-independent director and the board as a whole, review the performance of chairperson of the listed entity, and assess the quality, quantity, and timeline of flow of information between the management of the listed entity of the board.
In fact, I advise all the company secretaries to advise their directors to please go through the code of conduct. Though he said that the code of conduct is for independent directors. But a director is supposed to read this thing, then he will understand his duties, responsibilities, rights, authorities, and so on and so forth. The same point of time, even the company secretary at the back of his palm, he should be aware of the provisions of Schedule 4 also. Because he will get the clarity about that. One should not leave it to the independent director. This code of conduct is for you. Please abide by that. No, it is the responsibility of the company also to abide by the code of conduct. The moment the company has to abide means it is the responsibility of the company secretary to ensure the same. So he has to sensitize the entire board as far as Schedule 4 is concerned. And these kind of sensitizations, according to me, has to happen not in one lifetime of the company. They have to happen periodically.
Sudhakar, I remember your
Both,
quote actually. A company secretary is a charioteer to the board. That is what it is very important here, as you rightly point out. I remember of this quote, actually, what you used to quote in many of the forums. Really speaking, the company secretary has to ensure in guiding and educating, bringing the awareness to the entire board, because entire board is actually looking out of the company secretary on this issue because they are not expert in this field, where we are expert in our professional field actually. Yeah. Yes, Mani, you are saying something.
no, I was just trying to add, it's 166 plus Schedule 4. Both are important. The duties of a director and the Schedule 4, which is code for independent directors, both are very important.
And also, this many listed company and some unlisted company as well, they hold this independent directors meeting on a quarterly basis as well, and that really adds lot of value for the management and for the other independent directors as well, that what's happening in the company. So as a company secretary, we should not restrict only to one meeting. We should, highlight this.
And
Just going
several
back to
times, in fact, several times what happens is that the company secretary may not be able to tell the directors what he is supposed to tell. Because though it is very easy to say in the conferences or webinars and all like this, there are certain practical difficulties also with the company secretary to tell a few things to the board. It is, at that time, it is advisable to get the familiarization program conducted through some third party who will be able to tell your board. The moment the third party says something to the board, they will take it as a gospel truth, which you might be telling they don't bother for that.
Yeah.
So, what I'm trying to say, Mani, that there are several aspects in the Companies Act and in the SEBI regulations, also different regulations, which are very, very important. Say, for example, board evaluation. How much importance the boards are giving for the board evaluation? How many directors are aware of about the board evaluation is questionable. So it is for the companies once in a while, get that board evaluation done by the third party so that you will come to know about the outside world. Otherwise, what happens? It will be a simple, mere tick box exercise year after year. The same questions are there, same answers are there. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, kind of things goes. So, company secretaries, a time has come now, certain initiatives they have to take themselves also. And if we say that yesterday I was being treated like this, tomorrow also I will be treated like that, unless until you adopt the changing lifestyle, or changing corporate lifestyle, you will be treated like that only. You have to exhibit something new every day. Then only the way the management or the board treats you will also be different.
Yeah.
Sudhakar, your sense is actually what you call water versus Ganga Jal. Jal versus Ganga Jal. The moment you say something, it is treated like a water. But the moment somebody says from outsider, that actually becomes what you call Ganga Jal or Tirth. Ultimately, the stuff is the same. Water is the water. When you give it, it is the ordinary water. When somebody gives it, it is actually become, holy water. That is what you are actually bringing out. Very nice.
Yeah.
So now performance evaluation of ID. Schedule 4 provides that performance evaluation of ID shall be done by the entire board, excluding director being evaluated. As per LODR, it states the evaluation shall include performance of director and fulfillment of independence criteria. Annual exercise needs to be done. Decision to extend or continue shall be determined on the basis of the report of performance evaluation. Even in the case of reappointment of independent director, the report of the performance evaluation matters a lot. Now, liabilities. As per Regulation 25(5) of LODR and 149(12) of Companies Act 2013, if the independent director occur with his or her knowledge any process of board of director with his or her consent, he she had and any acted diligently with respect to the provision contained in the regulation. Independent director are not entitled to any stock options. As per Regulation 17(6) of LODR, all fee or compensation, if any, paid to non-executive director, including independent director, and shall require approval of the shareholders in the general meeting. Now, limit on the number of companies in which a person can act as an independent director. So, a person shall not serve as an independent director in more than 7 listed companies as per LODR. Any person who is serving as a whole-time director or managing director, they can serve as an independent director in not more than 3 listed entities. Website disclosure as per Regulation 46. So detail of familiarization programs imparted to independent director with respect to the number of hours spent and other relevant detail need to be published on the website of the company. The terms and condition of appointment of independent director is also required to be published on the website of the company. With respect to disclosure of event to stock exchange, in case of resignation
Just
of
1 minute, Khadija. One.
yes, sir.
Deepti, time has come now. Please take up some questions. Otherwise, it will become monotony for Khadija also and for the participants also, because this is now we are entering into a crucial phase now, disclosure to stock exchanges.
Yeah.
Give it a pause for the presentation. Please take up some questions.
Okay. I'll call out the questions. Let's start from the beginning. I am a certified ID, but yet to get a picked up and a placement of any company as an ID. Please help. I don't think we should answer this question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ID file a defamation case against the organization? Is it necessary to consider political affiliation prior to appointment of an ID?
I think there is no requirement to answer this as well.
Yeah.
Bala, with your permission, though that we cannot answer the first question, but only advice we can give it to the people. Don't jump to accept independent directorships. Don't take it as a vocation. Because just for a few rupees of sitting fees or a commission, if you accept the independent directorship, after 3 years of completion of my superannuation with Reliance, still I have to build up courage to accept an independent directorship. It's not like that I don't get offers, but I'm yet to build up that courage. So don't jump into this thing and don't take it as an occasion. And that's what my advice to that gentleman who has put that question. Yeah, sorry.
Please share the name of the book, Manikandan sir. I think initially you referred the books on this. So that is what somebody is asking, I think.
No, I was mentioning more on the guidance note.
Guidance note he mentioned. I
It is
said
the-
the guidance note.
It is the Secretary Standard Board which has come out. It's an ICSA publication.
Yeah, it is a very excellent guidance note, I must say, with the explanation, with the illustration, with the example, everything. I think we must go through it. And not only guidance note, all these guidance notes on everything is there. People should, by and large, should go through it. Even Sudhakar used to say in every forum
See,
also, I actually
you see, again the same thing. Recently, when I was talking to somebody, I said that beautiful guidance note is there. Sir, is there any other author's publication is there? See, the unfortunate part is that means even ICSI guidance note is not that superior to somebody else's authored book, which is not correct according to me, because if that author is writing some book, it is only one person's mindset. Whereas SSB's, any publication is concerned of ICSI, there is almost 25 to 30 experienced and seasoned professionals spending their enormous sweat and time also to bring that beautiful publication. In fact, recently in the open house of ICSI, I also have given to that necessary advocacy is to be required, to to propagate these publications of ICSI. And wherever possible on this particular platform, we also do this thing.
Yeah, just to
Sudhakar,
add,
Sudhakar, to supplement to your view, in fact, increasingly nowadays the regulators, especially the ROC and RD, they are quite frequently referring a secretarial standard, not only the mandated standard, but also a voluntary standard, non-mandated standard, other standard as well, and as well as the guidance note. There have been actually verbatim production of the guidance note in the order itself, a speaking order. In case of especially the practicing company secretary, as per the guidance note, you are supposed to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as per the guidance notes issued by this institute. You have failed to do that. These sort of things are now coming out from the adjudication of people. So you'll have to mind with,
because the institute is an institute authority. So whenever you do any publication carried out by institute, is a guidance by institute to the professional colleague to follow that. So indirectly, that is a kind of a direction, and it rather protects all the professional, whether in employment or in practice.
Khadija, can you take off the screen?
Let me tell you, apart from the regulators, even proxy advisories these days are referring to our publications.
Manikandan wanted to say something.
No, I was just saying, can you take off the screen so that the conversation can be much more intense? I was just trying to add a point on the constitution of the SSB itself, right? The constitution, if you see, it is about 25 to 30 people coming from various professionals, various walks of life, coming from listed companies, unlisted companies, practicing side. You have the representatives from the government, you have representatives from other industry bodies, etc. So, which means the thinking of making the law is very complex. I mean, making the law is one set, and making it as a guidance note, which can serve to many corporates, it will be very difficult task. So, having gone through that entire grill and entire point of view by many professionals, it's a great work product. So, I would actually strongly urge to all of you to look at it and try to implement as much as possible.
Can a listed company appoint a person as an independent, non-independent director after the completion of the second term as independent director? I think this was covered actually, is touched upon the cooling point.
Yeah, non-independent director, they can become from independent director, they can become a non-independent director. But as per the regulations, if somebody wants to become an executive director, then a cooling of 1 year is required. Cooling off period of 1 year is required.
If there is any insurance mechanism for ID which can reduce the liability, I think we discussed this actually, question you have talked about it. Then would request to explain portion-wise related image of the words getting explained prior-wise the page. So I think she brought out the differences etc. from there. Can we have this presentation? I must tell you, this question keep on coming. Presentation per se is actually not shared, but the thing is the recorded webinar will be disseminated via YouTube. The link is actually available. You can access the YouTube and the presentation contains in the YouTube that will be there. Does it mean that a shareholder in a company cannot be an independent director? I think this is, you are referring to that substantial supplier provision, etc. That you have taken up the example also. We have explained also what is it. RBT, sorry, I think this is my response to this. How many independent directors till date received notice legal proceedings?
I don't have the numbers.
we also do not have the number, but only thing is there are quite frequently lot many adjudication order I come across on various issues. They are actually looking into the independent directors. Many issues, even including the what you call the public platform used for the private placement, where the number is actually exceeded, disseminated. The independent director who are party to taking a decision, they were also penalized. The maximum penalty has gone up to 2 crores. So the statistics not available number, as Mani says also, I also don't have it. Whether the partners of the same firm can be independent director, there is a question number 1. Existing ID is a partner, is one firm. Whether another partner can be proposed as ID after the existing ID term.
Yeah, no, so I think you have to carefully look at the requirements, like what Sudhakar was mentioning about the 50 to 53 conditionalities, right? So if you surpass that, yes, technically you're cleared, but whether on the books or on the paper you would have cleared, but are you really maintaining that independence or not is something which you have to evaluate. And the company also has to evaluate whether they are actually meeting the, whether they are getting the independent thinking. So why are we speaking about independent directors so much? If everything can be done, it is like self-dealing, right? Why do you need a third party to vouch and give a point of view for any transaction which is coming up? I think it's simply put that if you should have an independent thinking and independent point of view before a decision is made. So if you are not compromising on that, I think you should go ahead. Whether you can do something or not is the law which you have to look at it. And if you are abiding by it, then there is nothing which stops.
Mani, as
Question, you
rightly
have to
you
see
brought.
what is the relationship, Bala, in this question, you have to see what is the relationship between the partnership firm and the company. It is not given here. It is simply said that whether partner of the same firm, the question itself is not complete.
Yeah, actually, if they are spouses, right? So you cannot. It actually conflict. It is not an independent person.
No, is it a legal form, audit form, which form it is? That is not, that relationship is not given. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mani, another thing is there, you brought out also initially, when you give the explanatory statement, you have to give the full details of the independent directors, and also in the opinion of the board, that person is actually suitable for the independency, that assessment. You have nicely explained in the beginning. That is all the exercise which need to be done in this case also. Sudhakar puts it is an incomplete question. So we'll have to see the circumstances really. Okay. Any age for the maximum age for the independent director? No, he
There is
said no,
no
there is
age.
no maximum age.
Prescribed. There is
Yeah,
no age prescribed, but 75 years, the moment the 75 years crosses, you need to
yeah,
take that special resolution.
that is what we discussed actually. Whether the independent director or wholly owned subsidiary, who is not the director of the holding company, is a related party of the holding company. I think this is irrelevant in this question. We are not discussing the related party. We had the related party discussions earlier. Please refer our
No,
webinar,
sorry,
which is
what was the
distributed.
question? Can you read it once again?
Whether the independent director of the wholly owned subsidiary, who is not a director in the holding company, whether he is a related party of the holding company.
Okay, it's a question on related party.
Yeah,
Got
that is what. It is a question on related party. Independent director should have the knowledge of in finance, means what sort of the knowledge in the financial professional or just knowledge of finance? Please clarify.
Yeah, so there I would like to give a uh, broad framework. I think in the presentation also it was covered. The board has to come up with the criteria. The board has to come up with the criteria. And second is there should be a balance of skills, right? So if a company doesn't have a specific skill set, then you have to find out for that specific skill to be skill to be higher. Therefore, the question of whether the CA is a minimum requirement for an account or not is something which it has to be decided by the company to company. But there are many companies who are not even from a CA background, but they have become a CFO. It's something similar to that, right? So if you're I don't think there is a prescription of some profession or a degree to qualify to become as an independent director.
In fact, the law doesn't say anything. Law only says that you have the, understanding the financials. That is what it actually
Now, of course,
says.
there is a very important point. There is a description of what is financial expertise.
Yeah.
Now, what is financial expertise in accounting? If the audit committee, everybody has to know how to read the financial statements. That's point number one. Point number two is one among them should be the financial expertise. So if they can bring that, and what is the financial expertise also, they have given the guidance. Either they should held the position of a CFO of earlier, or a KMP position, or he should be a person who the probably like a managing director or a chairman of the company, where the reporting of the finance function would have also come to him, right? So that kind of a candidate, if you're looking at, you can definitely choose.
Yeah, you're actually right, Honey. In fact, I came across in one of the real life incident. One of the person who was appointed as an independent director who did not have the financial expertise. He was inducted in the audit committee as a member. And as you know, that independent director majority was actually counted for that. But he initially said, I do not have much of the financial expertise. Other people said, no, we are another two people are there. We will take care of it. Whatever we say, it's okay. You please go along with that. That is what it has happened. It was working for some time, something which has gone wrong. Now the issue has actually come up left and right. The really case has actually started. He has been implicated for certain things. The case is still from across the higher court. It is landing up the Supreme Court. Decisions is actually awaited. That's sort of the things you'll mention. As you rightly said, Sudhakar said initially, while taking up the directorship, please don't jump into the conclusion. So
But
this is
that's
what I
where the
remember.
importance of that balance of skills comes into play. Now, once you have that metrics to say that this is the skills which you need on for your own board, and you have put across, if somebody is not coming up to with that skill, then you don't have the vacancy for that position. Probably you should look at the position of where you need the help. Otherwise, you go and shop every kind of a individual, right?
Not only that money, I think nowadays, if you look at the LODR regulation, it has given the very heavy responsibility to the NRC committee, as you rightly said, doing the skill matrix and the suitability for the particular position before making the recommendation. That is also there very much. So all the people have to shoulder that and identify rightly. Otherwise, you will end up in the problem. Is it possible to summon the ID who has not been associated with the organization for the last 5 years? However, during the tenure, there was an IPO in which he could not be able to uh, detect the loan, which was actually borrowed by the company prior to the appointing, and the same loan turned into the NPA after his retirement. So, is it still responsible for the accountable for the acts which did not occur during his tenure?
No. So I think there's a conflict. It said that it is during that tenure when he was still the independent director, and now it is saying it is not. So if the default, I think that is simply to put across, if the default has happened at that point of time when he was still an independent director, then he is still liable. If it is not, I think there is a guidance under the Companies Act also that he is not. I mean, at least there is a defense for him to go after challenge.
Only just to add to that, Mala, is that summoning can always happen, whether you are liable or not liable. Summoning can happen. You have to establish, whenever it happens, you have to establish that you are, okay, not liable for that particular non-compliance or whatever happens. So that's why, as independent directors, you have to have your homework thoroughly and keep always the backups with you, so that on a rainy day, these will be useful to you.
As rightly put, Sudhakar, you are actually right. Whenever any ROC take up the issues, etc., they simply go by the MCA. Whoever is present, irrespective of present or past, whatever it is, notices are actually issued. But only thing is, when you used to go, you have to actually substantiate, you have to establish. That is what it is actually seen in the practice. Yeah.
There is one more. I think whenever the independent director is not convinced, that if he is not satisfied with whatever he is thinking is not happening, probably he should put his foot down And one of the point is he can also record his viewpoints in the minutes, especially if he has a strong dissent. He has a right to request that his concern should be part of the minutes. So this will go a long way because, like what you said in the litigation, this can come into play and say that okay, I had exercised my complete due diligence, and here is what my view was, and which has been recorded as part of the minutes.
See, that money, as far as this, what you are saying is about the dissent.
Yeah,
Whenever any director is expressing his dissent in the board meeting, though the chairman is having a discretion to decide what to go in the minutes, he has no discretion as far as the dissent of a director is concerned. He is supposed to record that. So
exactly. Yeah,
and similarly, even if you are not attending a board meeting, within 15 days when you are getting the draft minutes, that point of time also you have to express your dissent. Even if you are not attending the meeting, you can say that as far as this particular resolution is concerned, I'm expressing my dissent. Please record the same. You have to intimate to the company and ensure that the dissent is recorded. So that tomorrow, because sometimes it happens that I have not attended the meeting. So what? But you received the minutes. Have you expressed your dissent? That is going to be the question. So, in the guidance note of SS1, we have given this very clearly. Even if a director is not attending the meeting, if he wants to express his dissent, still he has a right to express that and ensure that whenever by merely expressing the dissent is not sufficient, you have to ensure that it is recorded in the minutes properly.
and the rationale also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Sudhakar,
yes, Sudhakar.
Sudhakar, you brought out the very, very valid point on this because what happens is if you are calling a meeting on the shorter notice, if the independent director is not able to make it for that particular meeting or something like that, the law itself says actually it has to be actually circulated, whatever the decisions taken to the independent director, it has to be get ratified. That is also there. So law provides itself what you are actually saying it, as you rightly say, in the explanatory statement also, it is elaborately explained. Yeah.
Yes, Sudhakar, you're right. Actually, I remember Satyam's case wherein meeting of December 2008, the independent directors had, given their strong dissent for, acquisition or for Mitas, and that helped them. So you're right, Sudhakar.
See, not only that, just I will take Bala just 2 more minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Because we are discussing about the liability of the independent directors. If you see in the Companies Act, whether the director has a right to inspect the minutes of the meeting, it is not there very clearly. The director has a right to inspect the books of the company, and in the books definition, the minutes are covered. Though that's why you have to touch your nose like this only. For one, number two. Earlier, prior to companies, this SS1, people used to say that you have a right to inspect that a director has a right to inspect the meetings. So the moment the director ceases to be a director, he has no right to inspect the minutes of the meeting. So several times the directors used to go to the court, get the instructions to the company, the minutes to be provided to him so that he can defend himself in case of any litigation. If you see the SS1, I told this particular aspect several times. SS1 is a savior for the independent directors because it has given them clearly a right that you have a right to inspect the minutes of the meetings during your tenure as a director. Similarly, if a director is appointed today, he has a right to inspect all the previous minutes before his appointment also, because earlier several companies were not giving the inspection of the minutes prior to his appointment because at that point of time he was not a director. Again, the same thing, I remember that, Deepti, you were there if I'm not wrong at SS1 time. The kind of discussions what we used to have about this particular aspect, we have to give this protection to the independent directors. Ultimately, we could get through this particular thing from MCA also. So it is a law now by all means.
Generally, promoter appoint the independent director of their known, either any institute who actually trains the persons to become an independent director. How to get appointed as an independent director in that company? Please advise.
IACA. IACA is there, but globally, if you see, there is a pool of independent directors. In fact, CII is also trying to build the pool of independent directors. But if you see globally, NACD has a association for independent directors. So it actually creates a forum or the source where you can tap the potential. And actually, the second area or source is actually all these KMPs of all the listed companies or of the top companies, right? So once they retire, that's the talent pool which you can probably tap in. In fact, they are the most relevant people, I would say, because they would have served the companies. They understand the intricacies how a company has to be run. So therefore, they are the next targeted people of who can potentially become the independent directors.
Again, here, Bala, the unfortunate part is, I don't know whether this gentleman who asked this question is a company secretary or not. Institute of Company Secretaries has started training the board of directors. In fact, 3 sessions were already over. The fourth one is going to be there. This is a 3-day program. In person, these are to be done. And ICSI is holding these programs at a very exotic locations. The fourth program is going to take place somewhere in West Bengal. So what I'm trying to say is that we, as company secretaries, we have to get connected with our alma mater. Several times it happens, the professionals are getting disconnected with our alma mater. So we don't know what is happening. It's not correct.
Sudhakar, as you rightly said, in fact, you are also addressing the forum. I'm also there, and even Mani also will be attending. There is actually a PMO course which has been actually designed. There is a certification of independent director which is actually conducted periodically by our institute.
Yeah.
RBI requires a fit and proper check in the case of the ID on the backboard. It is not only the RBI, even in other companies also, a declaration, affirmation is required by the independent director every year, affirming that he actually remains the independent. If there is any change is required, that is to be shown. It was actually talked also initially. It is not only the RBI, it is in the other companies also. RBI Master Circular says that because many companies incorporate as the NPSC company under the RBI, that is. Please share checklist to be taken in case of the IDs post their appointment.
Post their appointment. Post their appointment is very simple. You have to file DIR 12. They have to attend the meetings regularly. Their appointment letter has to be there on the website. Those are the things which comes to my mind immediately. But one can definitely look into the regulations and prepare a checklist.
And also, I request please go through our series of webinars on the topic and where everything is covered. We can go through that. Okay. Yeah. Next.
Can two independent directors be paid a different amount of the sitting fees based on their experience and profile?
Yeah, we spoke about that.
We spoke about it actually on this. Can individual access the views of the proxy advisors or any proposed resolution in the AGM of a company otherwise?
Sorry, what was the question?
Can individual access the views of the proxy advisors on any proposed resolution in AGM of a company otherwise?
So the way the proxy advisory firm work is, first of all, they come out with the voting guidelines on every year. So their voting guidelines is available on their websites. It's public information, so anybody can access. That shows the philosophy of how they look at each specific resolution. That's point number one. Point number two is the voting recommendations is given for the subscribers, which means that if you pay as an institute, as an FII or FPI, or even if it is I'm not sure if HNI services they give or not, but it is a subscription-based model. By way of a subscription, you can definitely get the recommendations.
The wholly owned unlisted subsidiary is not required to appoint the ID. In such a cases, how to actually continue to constitute the audit committee, NRC committee, and how to comply with the mandatory ID meeting in evaluation of the performance of the board?
No, so I think the regulations itself says that there is an exemption. There is an exemption for a wholly owned subsidiary or the joint venture of that you need not have the independent directors on your board. I think if you see why it is not required, because if it is a wholly owned subsidiary, you are the shareholder, right? So therefore, everything is actually seen as one unit. That is one point. But the second point is voluntarily you can actually whatever you want to do, you can do. Appoint the independent directors. And third point is,
I think money they are exempted from constitution of these committees.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. They are
Yeah, that is what he
exempted.
is saying. Yeah, that is what he is saying.
They're exempted, but if you want to do it, you can do it voluntarily.
Voluntarily anybody can do it,
Yeah.
but otherwise they are exempt.
The third point is, if it is a material subsidiary, material unlisted subsidiary, then you should have one independent director on the subsidiaries board. So that I think you should see whether you are crossing those thresholds.
An independent director is
I think there was a point of evaluation, etc. But if you want to do all of that, then you might well as appoint and voluntarily the audit or voluntarily the independent directors.
An independent director is an independent director in many group and associate companies. Technically, he meets the independence criteria, but can he really be classified as an independent director, getting sitting fees and commission from same group companies, where he is actually substantial individual income is from the same group?
Now that I think the company has to decide, or the individual has to decide. Yeah, I would leave it there.
Sudhakar, anything on this, your view?
That independence is a perception. If he is acting for 10 companies or 7 companies in the same group, that doesn't mean he is compromising his independence.
Yeah, but the law also allows you have the cap from the listing regulations and the Companies Act perspective. If the concern is about the quantum of money, it's a different problem. But if it is the quantum of number of directorships, the law allows 7 companies in a listed company, independent director has to have. And as per the Companies Act, also you have a threshold of 2010 of that, including the committee. So that I think you should take care of. Otherwise, it is allowed.
RBI requirements, the bank and the NPSC is also important. NPSC private companies beyond a certain threshold are required to comply with the section 177 and therefore IDs to be appointed. The RBI regulation is something different. In case of the NPSC company, whether it's a private company, public company, these committees are required because under the Companies Act, private companies are exempted for audit committee, NRC committee, etc. But at the moment you are the NPSC company, even if it is a private company, under the RBI regulation, it will be required and the compliance will be done according to the Companies Act. Actually,
he is giving information on it. You can go next.
Okay. In case of the non-listed company, closely held of this must be independent director, where the company's capital is less than 1 crore.
No, it's not question. He is just telling them.
Okay.
Comment.
Sir, companies having less than 1,000 shareholders of the company does not need to have the stakeholders committee as per section 178.
Correct.
Yeah.
As per the regulation 16(1)(b)(6), in case of the listed entities, the independent director should not be less than 21 years of the age, practical, and 21 years and asked questions before MD WTD 65 years of the board meeting. Compare the more experience and knowledge of MD WTD CS CFO managers. Please clarify. I'm not getting.
I don't know what is there to clarify. It is about I think if I'm getting the question, it's saying that the difference is age. Whether a younger person, can he withstand or converse with the seniors? Is that the question?
That is what it looks like actually. Because 20 years of the age practically.
Yeah, but now with the concept of all these new age companies which are coming in, right? This has actually, we have seen many companies, like especially the executive roles, they're all very young professionals. You see all new age startup companies, it's all started by 21 years college outcoming kids, right? So therefore, to converse with them, you should have a different mindset and the way you approach it. I mean, this is, I don't think we have a legal answer for this.
Yeah.
Maximum companies are non-professional companies.
Mr. Bala, his expression that majority independent director.
Okay. Can the link shared with us? I think Dipti has already put it here. In case of the reappointment, the ID or MD is DR 12 is required to be filed.
Yes, it is required.
Yeah, it is required to be filed. In my first term of the ID has expired and I resigned from the office. Can I reappoint as ID within 3 months? This I think you discuss actually. In
No,
fact,
you cannot get appointed as an independent director, but you can get appointed as a non-executive director. If you want to continue as an independent director, there is a requirement of the 3 years cooling off period. Once it is completed, then you can do it.
Can the board of director recommend the appointment of the independent director subject to approval of the independent director in the AGM?
The first time appointment has to be done by, the recommendation has to be done by the NRC based on the way that skills, what we spoke about, they have to identify, come up with. Then it will go to the board will approve it. But once it is approved, it has to be approved by the shareholders by a special resolution within 3 months. And the board is also a recommending authority at that point of time. The shareholders are the approving authority, but it has to be done within 3 months. The recent change which has happened is the date from the entire tenure, if you quote that 5 years, which is the maximum, should be taken from the date of the board approval. I think there was different practice earlier where few people were actually taking the first date as the board approval date, few people were taking the first date as the shareholders approval date. Now the regulations have clarified that all in all it has to be 5 years.
Please explain more on the insurance.
We discussed
We
a lot.
explained enough here.
Yeah.
We explained enough, I think.
Yeah.
Is it mandatory to appoint the additional director and file
for
form DR12 and
director.
again regulated AGM? Yeah, we talked about it.
Skip that. No, director appointment form filing. Next.
Yeah, that we talked about it initially. She actually explained. Because board can only appoint the additional director. That is why he is appointed additional director. In the AGM only, they can be a director. That is what he explained actually. Can ID individually take his policy rather waiting for the company to which or they are associated?
Yeah, nobody can stop. You can do whatever.
It is up to him. In case of the reappointment, whether the approval of the shareholder through the special resolution is mandatory, required to be taken prior to the effective date of the reappointment. I think should we discuss this also?
It is mandatory. There was a different practice earlier. I think there was a subsequent question also, one of the panelists, they said that some 7 or 8 companies have taken post. Yeah, so there was a difference in practice, but now the regulations are very clear. It has to be prior.
If the company has appointed the ID upon the recommendation of the board meeting, subject to approval of the members of the AGB, the members approve in the AGM of the file the PR tour. And the date of the AGM, is it wrong? How can we ratify? Please suggest. What is the question? If the company has appointed the ID upon the recommendation of the board meeting, subject to approval of the members in the AGM.
In the form filing, there is a mistake of date of AGM. How to correct it that way? That is the question. When they file the form after approval of shareholders. In the act, well, mistake in the AGM. Khadija?
I don't have an answer, sorry.
The form can be rectified always. That is not going to affect the appointment of the director as such.
What are the precautions should be taken by the person who is actually being appointed as an independent director other than D&O insurance policy?
Now the precautions, I think, I don't know from whose perspective precautions, whether it's a company perspective or an individual perspective.
Individual perspective, I think.
I will try and answer both. The company perspective, first you please see whether the person whom you are inducting is a fit and proper in your own sense, the way we were discussing. First you find out that, and second you establish whether all those 50 to 53 points, whether that individual is able to score good in all the parameters. The third is you please see if the balance of skills, whether you are looking out the candidate in the domain which you require, so that he can contribute in the decision making of the company. And then fourth is the past performance, etc. That you can look at it. Ultimately, there should be a cohesive board, and they should add value to your company. I think those are the points from the company's point of view. Also, the main important thing is you please do a due diligence of the prospective individual so that he doesn't bring trouble to you. As Sudhakar was also mentioning, the reputation is big today. So an individual who is coming with a bad reputation can actually get the damage as well. So that is one part from the company's point of view. Individual point of view, just flipping over on the same thing, do a due diligence of the company where you are getting into so that if the company is in your own sense, if they are not on the right compliant manner, probably you should avoid taking that. And you do familiarize with the operations of the company so that you can serve and add value when you get into the company. And of course, with all the other liabilities to protect yourself, you see you have enough protection from an insurance point of view. I think those are some 2-3 points which I would give.
How do you
Say
know whether
simply,
the
one man Bala, to say simply from the individual perspective, as an independent director, what he has to do. I always say that before you are taking a dive into the pool, you should know the depth of the pool. Same is the case with independent directors also. Before accepting the independent directorship, it is nothing like that taking a dive into a pool. Understand the your role as an independent director, liabilities, responsibilities, accountabilities. Get proper training. Okay, and after that only you have to accept that.
how do you know whether the policy is taken or not?
Affirmation by the company.
Anything minimum fees of
Or
the
a
IDs maximum.
copy of the insurance policy also.
Yeah. Actually, independent directors do ask for a copy of the DNO policy, and as a company secretary, we should send to all on a yearly
Yeah,
basis.
there is one more thing. There is one more thing called indemnification agreement. So nowadays, the directors actually ask the companies to write an indemnification agreement, both individual and the company gets entered into, which exactly reduces the point of all this D and O and what happens in case if there is a claim, etc.
Anything minimum fees for the IDs, maximum is there, I understand.
There is no minimum. Anybody, actually, they can give up the remuneration also.
Is DNO policy applied only to the listed companies within 1,000 cap or all the listed companies?
The regulation says 1,000, but it can be expanded as well.
It is not 1,000 crore market cap. It is top 1,000 listed company.
Top
That's what
1,000
the
listed
word they have used.
Correct.
Top 1,000 listed company.
Yeah.
DNO policy is for the 1 year and it can be really year to year. Once the CS resigned in the year 2024-25, he ceased to be a KMP and out of the purview of the policy. In case there is a legal suit pursuant to the 2020, I think we talked about it. This is all talked about the tenure. ID can benefit from the profit-based commission. Does it not impact the independence?
No, that's why there is a threshold of that 1%, right?
Can different percentages of the commission?
So increasingly what is happening is the companies are moving towards the framework rather than profit-based. They are saying that you come out with this framework, like say there's a fixed fees. If you perform a role on a audit committee, this will be the fees. If you become a member of SRC, this will be the fees. Or one flat fees to say that if you spend the entire year, this will be the fees. So that will actually take away all these problems because whether in the good years or bad years, it's not linked to your performance, right? So therefore, there is no association or dilution of independence.
There should be a now rapid fire round because you are left with only 12:55. It is already, and Khadija is there with 5 more. I think 5-6 more slides. So you have to do a rapid fire round now quickly.
I think I will take it. Next question, commission we already talked. I have query on CSR. We are not taking CSR. Many PSU have not appointed ID. What is the view of panelists from compliance perspective? Non-compliance is non-compliance, and we have qualified also. Is there any maximum age limit fixed for appearing in ID exam?
No.
No, that is not there for appointment. Yes, amongst ID also, should there be parity of sitting fees payment? Same we discussed, whether different sitting fees. It is possible. Is there any exemption provided to CSCS, CMA from online proficiency self-assessment test?
It is
Please
there.
read that. It is allowed. Please read with the
10
condition.
years, 10 years, I think it's allowed.
Is ID entitled for ESOP and sweat equity shares?
No.
No. It was there in the slide. Please take up the above questions. Can an ID work in other company as ID during cooling period?
Yes.
It is independent director for that company, not for all other company. D&O insurance taken by company on board. If ID has his own professional indemnity insurance, can he buy such insurance coverage? Double coverage is no issue. Means board is recommended only. If a director has served 3 terms, first term 1.5 years, second 5 years, from third term 3 years, on becoming known that independent director has been reappointed for the third term, the ID demitted the office. I think you are just informing. If ID retire in April 26 and meeting took place in August 25, whether they need to pass special resolution in August 25, how the total period is calculated?
No, what is the question? If the ID is there,
I am reading point. If ID retire in April 26, retire, and meeting took place in August 25, that is before. Whether they need to pass special resolution in August 25.
I think the principle.
April 25 it is.
I think we have spoken about the principles.
Correct.
Very simple.
Yeah, it is before the expiry of the term, the reappointment has to be taken. That is what we elaborately spoken about it on this, actually, really speaking.
There are at least
Tripti, I'll read out.
Yeah.
There are at least 18 to 20 prominent listed companies which have taken the post facto approval of the reappointment. That is what he was mentioning, actually.
Yeah.
One thing is that in these cases, let me tell you one thing with my limited knowledge. So long as the regulator has not looked into it, you are safe. You don't have any problem. The day the regulator looks into this aspect,
so there was a confusion and a different practice, but the regulations made it clarified. It actually clarified after a certain period of time.
Okay. Whether the sitting fee paid to the ID for their term should be recoverable. Kindly advise your views.
No, so so any remuneration can be recovered, but for what? If there is a manipulation of books, or if there is any those kind of a nature, then there is a possibility that you can recover. In fact, the Companies Act also has that policy. The Companies Act also has that provision of if somebody has been wrongly entitled and it has been gone, and then you can recover that.
If an independent director term is ending in April 25, as per you, I should take the prior approval now. If I take it, my AGM is September 24. Will the appointment be from April or from September or date of AGM?
It's not as per me, it is as per the regulations. As per the regulations, it has to be taken before the expiry of the term.
Yeah, the renewal date will be actually the very next day of the expired term, it will be for 5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the idea of the flow of information to third party. Okay. What are the main differences in being independent director in the listed and unlisted companies?
Sorry, what are the differences?
What are the main differences being the independent director in the listed company and unlisted company?
Very short, small question.
LODR.
See, LODR is the thing. Listed company, the LODR. Other company, there is no LODR.
It is a big thing or you have to,
Yeah. Whether the minutes of the IDV to be circulated on the director and who signed the minutes.
So the minutes, I think the way we have to look at is, it's also one way to look at is you look at independent directors as a committee meeting itself. And you comply with all the requirements of giving the advance notice, conducting the meeting, maintaining the minutes, circulating the minutes within 15 days. Though it is voluntary, these are all voluntary. I don't think there is a guidance under the regulations, but this is the best practice which you can do. So by going by that, the chairman of the independent directors or if you identified a lead independent director in your company, they can sign.
Great panel, lovely presentation, solid enlightenment, amazing initiative. Thank you. Somebody is appreciating.
Thank
Board
you.
processes restricted only to the board meeting held in their notice and agenda. Any communication in between the directors are not considered in this definition, right?
Interesting
Yeah.
question. Interesting question. There is any other matters. Usually in the agenda, there is any other matters. You can invoke that with the permission of the chair and the majority of the independent directors. You can invoke that and discuss anything. I think this is the question, or are they referring to some chit-chatting happening? I'm not sure what they are trying to say. But if you are asking, is that something, any agenda can be taken beyond what has been listed? Yes, it can be listed under this provision.
Can it be minuted and kept by the CSS? What about the government company? If the IAS officers deputed or nominated from the government not interested on ID meetings?
The law requires you to hold the meeting once in every year. So I think you have to judge whether you are in compliance or non-compliance.
Can ID interfere day-to-day functioning of the company?
No.
No.
Yeah, the very concept of independent director is to maintain independence. So therefore, you need to play that role.
ID appointment should be done in the IICA from their data bank and not based on the information near friends and others. There are many good IDs available, but waiting outside. I think he is putting information.
Yeah,
I am
but
preparing.
they have to but if you want them to become part of the independent directors, they have to
Enroll in the panel. Yeah.
enroll in the data bank.
I am preparing for the ID examination. Please suggest books and study materials.
No, I think the IICA study material itself is a good one. It actually gives a very good resources, and the advantage is it is self-paced. Whenever you want to read, how much ever you want to read, you can read. And then there is no bar in the number of attempts which you take. So from that perspective, it is a good resource. I don't advise any other resource to be taken.
I have retired as a joint secretary from Indian Audit and Account Service. I am actually exempted from taking the examination of ID. Am I exempted from taking the examination of ID?
I need to critically look at the exemption list.
On the face of it, I can say yes, because he's a very senior person. On the face of it, it looks like he's exempted.
Yeah.
Appreciate we of Sudhagar sir for always calling a spade as a spade. Appreciation to you, Sudhagar. I am a 75 years old age. There are any special requirement to be appointed as an ID? If you are 75 years old, the subject to all other conditions, so special resolution because beyond 75 years.
Only special resolution.
Yeah. Sir, that means the existing non-executive director can be appointed as an independent director in the company?
Non-executive director to independent director.
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yeah. Existing non-executive director as an independent director.
If he is qualified to be, yes. Answer is yes.
Yeah.
Do international independent directorship as the similar provision are dramatically different?
It depends upon jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We are learning from the West. So therefore, many of them we have borrowed the concepts from the Western. So, and also it depends. If it is UK, it's almost similar. If it is US, it is little different. In Australia, it is almost similar. In Singapore, it is similar. So it depends upon the jurisdiction actually.
How independent director can prove that they are not updated and involved if they receive the notice from the ED or EOC notice in real estate? That's what he said. You have to record your dissent. You have to put out things. These are all we discussed actually. Yeah. You have to have things. It is recorded in the minutes. Minutes are ultimately the evidence which is actually accepted by the courts of law. Please guide us with the points that can be covered during the familiarization program.
Yeah. So on the familiarization program, I think the best way to do it is you carve out a program which actually gives an introduction of your length and breadth of the company. Usually what the good practices is you identify the head of the departments of each function. You have a mechanism of providing an overview of their function to the independent director. So that gives you the familiarization to the company itself. That is point number one. Point number two, there is a requirement also to conduct the training on a yearly basis to the board, right? So I think most of the points which we discussed earlier about Section 166, the Schedule 4 Code of Conduct, etc., including the point which you mentioned that the external party's view will be taken much more favorably than the internal person. Probably this is a area where you can put all these duties and responsibilities what directors have to perform through a third-party training program on a yearly basis. So this covers both of these points. Should cover the familiarization program. This is only from the Companies Act point of view. But one more important thing is like what we were discussing about identifying the risks of which can come and hit the company, right? So that is also something which the board has to constantly evaluate and see if some adequate training is required. Like for example, today it is AI or cyber security or ESG. I don't know how many directors are familiarized with these concepts. I think these are some of the evolving concepts. This keeps changing. So I think we, as the professionals or company secretaries, have a greater role to scan the market and see what can be brought up as a training program. These can all put together can be a familiarization program.
And just to add that, as Sudhakar had mentioned, that anything told by a third party is taken as a gospel truth. So they can take, services of some professional firms, including Mehta and Mehta.
Yeah, Gangajal chahiye.
Yeah.
Is there a definition of independent director in India? Yes, what percentage?
Yes, it is a small percentage.
Whether the group company, neither holding company nor subsidiary company, statutory auditor will be appointed as an independent director.
No, so I think there is a clear mention about the statutory auditor practicing company secretaries. I mean, the secretarial auditors can't become the independent directors. If you want to become, then there is a cooling off period.
If panelists can throw some light on the liability of the IDs in a check dishonored case, if they are make party to the case. No, check on is the day-to-day affair of the company. So non-executive independent directors totally exempted. They will not be involved. It's a day-to-day affair of the things. They are not there. Even if they receive the notice, they will not actually substantiate their stand. For the non-listed company having a capital of less than 25 lakhs and the promoter company and the promoter is holding 75% shares of this, any provision that they should not be appointed an independent director? They don't need to appoint independent director.
I don't think they are crossing those thresholds which is prescribed. So they can take that exemption.
I am 28 years of the experience of the IT professional, IICA certified as the IT, waiting for my first appointment of the first months, though our group was guided by the skill arbitrage training agency. What should I do to have a better chances of recruitment waiting for last 6 months?
I will wish you all the very best. If
Yeah.
there are anything, probably wish.
If there is any age limit for appointment of the ID, no age limit is set actually 21 years of the age, and if you are 75, special resolution will be called for. Okay. If ID meeting fails under committee, then also there is a question of sitting fees to be paid or not. Now, if the ID meeting falls under committee.
So whether
This is
sitting
an interesting topic. I think we discussed this enough in the SSB also. I think there is a divergent views. There are companies who think that independent director committee, I mean, they treat that as a committee itself and then they pay. See, ultimately, the board has a discretion to pay. If they think that
Under 197(5), the board has the discretion to pay, and better to get it approved by the shareholders if you want to be abundantly cautious about that. In RIL, we did like that.
Yeah.
Very nice and informative
Deepti,
session.
there
Thank
is
you.
a question for you. They are saying that whether Mehta and Mehta conducts the training program for independent directors. If so, how can I enroll?
Yeah, we will. You connect to us. We'll give you guidance. Surely.
Very nice and informative session. Thank you for Mehta and Mehta. Also, ID meeting to be held without the presence of the KMP, SMP of the company. then how can we actually prepare the minutes so that a minute can be shared to the auditors and others? I suppose ID
Good
meeting
question.
and their output to be submitted only to the chairman of the company and not others.
Absolutely.
Good question. Good question. So there are divergent practices, and there is no prohibition of attending. I think it is only the permission which they have to give. The independent directors, if they think that any input is required from any person for a particular matter, they can call them. I don't think there is a problem. Usually, the way it is recorded is the chairman will actually dictate the minutes, and then the brief minutes will be prepared. And this is not entitled. These minutes, first of all, it is not mandatory to maintain the minutes. Let me start from that. And the second point is, even if we are maintaining, there is no requirement to provide it to the auditors or anybody else, because there is no requirement to maintain the minutes in the first place.
Highly informative session. Congratulations to all. You may also quote Institute of Directors as well. I am the ACS from 2006 and the FCA from 2007. Whether I will be eligible to the exemption of the examination?
Yes.
Can a company remove ID?
Sorry, one minute. Sir, he should be a KMP then only, not be barely becoming a chartered accountant or company secretary. You are not exempted. You have to be a KMP if I am not wrong. Kindly check that aspect.
10 years.
Oh, I think there is an exemption if you are if you are a chartered accountant or a practicing company secretary.
In practice,
for
I
10
think
years.
15 plus years, something like that.
10 years.
Can a
10
company
years,
remove?
yes.
Can a company remove ID, and what is the process?
Yes, it can be. You have to take the approval of the shareholders.
Do IIC
Special
Khadija-
resolution.
Yeah, special resolution. Khadija actually covered in one of the slides.
Do IICA data bank assist offering opportunity to the appointment of the ID?
Chalo, next question. Yeah, this kind of
Pro-
questions is okay.
Professional cess will be completed in the 2 years as per the rules. So for registering the ID data bank, an individual can be appointed formally in the board as an ID before clearing the proficiency test, and the proficiency test can be given later on. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can be
Yes.
appointed. You have a
Can
2
be.
years time to take the exam. That is correct. Can be appointed. I think Mehta, he has already read out.
Yeah, that's
Your
over.
contact detail, Excel. I think questions are over with this, I think. Now, Khadija, over to you. Remaining slide, you have to run through it because we are already shoot up the time. It's already 1:15.
So with respect to disclosure of event to stock exchange, BSE and NSE. So in the case of the resignation of ID of listed entity, disclosure need to be given to the stock exchange within 7 days from the date of resignation, and in which letter of resignation with detailed reason, name of the listed company in which he hold directorship, confirmation that there is no material reason for resignation. Also, this detail required to be furnished to the stock exchange. With respect to CG report, composition of the board, which includes the detail of ID, detailed reason of resignation, and web link where detail of familiarization program is imparted is required to be disclosed. Now, duties of independent director. They need to undertake induction and update their skill, clarification of information, keep themselves informed about the company. They should not disclose anything confidential with respect to the company. Report concern about unethical behavior, actual or suspect fraud. Pay attention and ensure deliberation before approving any. Give concern and disclosure of interest. So every appointment of an independent director shall be termed as a fresh appointment. So the disclosure needs to be required to be given, even if it is he is reappointed. Whether resolution by circulation is allowed for appointment of independent director. So there is no restriction for with respect to the appointment or reappointment of independent director by way of circulation. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Khadija. Very well done. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Stop sharing the screen, Khadija.
Yes.
And I think no one has raised the hand. And
Dipti, the number of deliberation, number of questions, number of participants, if you look at it, I have a feeling, even though the company law is 10 years old, and still, as if we are reading for the first time and we are having a clarification, we are reinventing the wheel. That is what the feeling I get it. It's good. There are a lot of learnings in this, not only for me, even by the participants, because that itself is reflected from the number of participation which is appreciated. Thanks a lot to Mani. Thanks a lot to Anil and Sudhakar as usual. And thanks a lot to Khadija, who was well presented, everything, covering all the points, that also in the sequential order, bringing out very briefly, very nice. Thanks a lot. I think, Dipti, your last word.
Yeah, thanks, Mr.
Before
Mani.
that, I just wanted to extend my thanks to each one of you. Thanks a lot for having me here. It's a fantastic deliberation, a great panel. I was very, very impressed the way the questions came in. So thanks a lot. It actually made me to think, and I may have to go back and read the books once again. So thanks for me to pushing into that territory, and look forward for many more sessions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mani.
Thank you, Mani. It is not the first time you are here. You are there earlier also. We look forward future more sessions also from you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks, Mani.
all participants. Thanks a lot for your interesting questions, wonderful discussion. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Sudhakar. Thank you, Anil Bhai. Thanks, everyone. Excellent presentation, Khadija. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks all. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks to all the panelists.
Thanks, dear.